Students, welcome to Developmental Biology course. My name is K.Subramaniam, so I will be your instructor. So, the course will have two main parts. One is the principles of developmental biology, where we are going to learn about the fundamental concepts that cover development of diverse organisms. So, these are the basic concepts with which all organisms are built. And in the second part, we are going to look at early embryonic development of a few selected organisms where that process has been better understood compared to other systems. The recommended textbook for this course is Scott Gilbert, 9th edition or later editions you can follow. So, before we go any further, what is developmental biology? So, that is answered in a nutshell in this cartoon. So, we all start as a single symmetrical cell called the newly fertilized zygote shown here, and from there you have a baby forming which is by no means totally symmetrical. You have head and a beautiful expression of smile, eyes, ears, skin and limbs and so on. How do we get here starting from an totally symmetrical single cell? This is what developmental biology is all about. First, let me outline some of the central questions in developmental biology, and that will explain what actually you are going to learn in this course. So, the first question is, we understand through cell biology that by process of mitosis, cells divide into two cells and more and so on. But then at some point the cells have to become different kinds of cells. Simple multiplication of the same type is not going to be enough. For example, you need to make your brain, and brain cells are very different from the cells that form the cardiac muscle. So, how these different kinds of cells form? So, that is what we call as cellular differentiation. And the next main question that we deal with is morphogenesis. So, becoming different kinds of cells is not enough, they have to take different shapes. For example, here you have cells multiplied into lot of muscle cells, but that is not going to make a muscle. They have to organize into a certain muscle fiber. So, only as a fiber muscle is actually useful in a living organism. So, how does this shape formation take place? So, that is our second main question, or how morphogenesis form. Then our third question is about growth. It is not simply cells divide and then become different kinds and then undergo morphogenetic changes to make shape, and that probably generates a small infant, but that has to eventually grow into adult, and that growth cannot simply be cells expanding their size or something like that, or in a particular tissue you make more cells and then simply become bigger tissue. So, it has to be controlled in terms of proportions. For example, imagine if one of your cells in one of your hands divided one more round, your one hand will be double the size of the other hand, and that is not going to make a functional organism. So, the growth has to be proportional to the overall body, and therefore, the growth is highly regulated, and how this growth control is achieved. So, that is our third main question. And fourth, reproduction. How do organisms reproduce and how do they make the same kind in the next generation? So, that is another central question in developmental biology. The fifth is evolution is possible, adaptation, modifications etc. are possible only within the constraints of current body plan. Suddenly, for example, if you realize locomotion by having a wheel, a circular object, and is rolling motion is really good for adaptation, that is just not possible with the existing body plan. So, evolution is possible only by the variations allowed by the development at a given generation. So, in that sense evolution and developmental biology are intimately connected. So, evolution can only happen to the extent variations in development can be accommodated. And the sixth, how all of this is integrated into the environment. Life does not happen in isolation, it happens in a given environment. So, what are the environmental influences and how does that affect development? So, these are some of the central questions of developmental biology, and this is what developmental biologists are concerned. So, if you choose to learn developmental biology and become a developmental biologist eventually, these are some of the questions you can try to work on, and these have profound implications to the rest of the biology as well.